The U.S. faces an implacable enemy in Iran and must react accordingly. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Attention is riveted right now on Gaza and President Trump's ideas for dealing with this situation. But the ultimate source of the Gaza troubles is Iran. Without Iranian money, weapons, and training, Hamas, or a Hamas-like force, is impossible. The same is true of Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, not to mention terrorist groups in Nigeria and elsewhere. The fanatics ruling Iran may be corrupt and economically incompetent, but they are never going to shed their core reason for being, which is to impose their brand of religious extremism on the Middle East and the rest of the world, and to exterminate Israel and the Jewish people there and elsewhere. This terrorist tiger is never going to change its stripes. The U.S. and the West can never seem to grasp that Tehran is ruled by men who are true revolutionaries. The late Henry Kissinger wrote that a fundamental mistake of Britain, France, the U.S., and others in the 1930s was their failure to grasp the revolutionary nature of Hitler and the Nazis. Hitler's grotesque worldview and ambitions could never be stopped by traditional diplomacy. Murderous hardcore revolutionaries like Stalin and Mao were more patient and opportunistic in their conduct than Hitler, but they're equally maniacal in their unshakable ideological beliefs. After the horrific failure of his Great Leap Forward, which cost the lives of as many as 50 million people, Mao had to pull back. But a few years later, he was at it again, this time with the Cultural Revolution, which plunged his country into years of deadly chaos. Only with his death could China modernize. The rulers of Iran are of a similar nature. President Trump and his team must face an ugly, stark reality. As long as this regime remains in power, a genuine peace will never come to the Middle East. This unalterable truth leads to these hard policies. Washington and Israel must destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. The mullahs are not far off from creating a nuclear weapon. A nuclear-armed Iran would be a global catastrophe. The Trump administration is already tightening the sanctions that were loosened by the people around Joe Biden. This unannounced covert act allowed the mullahs to sell tens of billions of dollars worth of oil, primarily to China, money which Iran used to finance its terrorism. The White House, though, must go further. For instance, companies that do any business with Iran should be warned that they will suffer serious repercussions if they persist in dealing with Tehran. Anti-regime forces in Iran must be aided and encouraged, as we did under Ronald Reagan during the Cold War with the Soviet Union and the countries it controlled in Central and Eastern Europe. Internal forces in Iran could ultimately upend the government. And the U.S. must unequivocally make clear that any attack on current or former U.S. officials will trigger similar responses on all key Iranian figures. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.